Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about DMRs, or Designated Marksman's Rifles. In particular, we want to focus on the LMT L129A1 adopted by the UK. But before we get into that rifle, I want to talk a little bit about the DMR concept as a whole, how it's evolved from World War II to present times, and how the war in the Middle East for us and our allies has kind of evolved our thinking with regards to the use of DMR rifles. But before we get into today's video, guys, if you enjoy our content, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out tremendously. Also comment down below. It helps us with the algorithms, but we also enjoy reading and responding to those comments. And many times you give us ideas for videos like this one. With all that being said, let's get started with today's video. Have you guys heard of primaryarms.com? You may not know this, but they're one of the largest online retailers out there. They have an amazing selection of everything from firearms all the way to accessories, optics, slings, cleaning kits, anything you can think of, ammunition. They sell it at primaryarms.com. They have really good prices. I've shopped with them for many years. And even in times like this, when it's kind of hard to find things, they generally have a pretty good stock. There's no membership fees, and they're helping to support us here at the Military Arms Channel. So when we need things for video production, they're going to help us out in that regard, which helps us to make content for you. And all I ask is you guys swing by and check out primaryarms.com. Let's first talk about the Designated Marksman Rifle and what it is. In essence, it's a rifle that's meant to fill a gap, an engagement gap, between a standard infantry service rifle and a dedicated sniper rifle. And in general, most people would say that that engagement gap distance is between 300 meters and 600 meters. Anything past 600 meters would be a sniper rifle. Anything inside of that, down to 300, would be the domain of the DMR, and then from 0 to 300 meters would be the standard engagement distance for a basic infantry rifle. And so the United States has messed around with a number of different rifles. Primarily once we got into the wars over in the Middle East, we found that at the engagement distances that many soldiers were finding themselves in, their standard M4 service rifles just weren't fulfilling the role very well. Even with the ACOG, they were having a hard time, pinpointing targets at distances up to 600 meters. And so the military started looking for solutions to fill this gap. And the United States military went through a whole bunch of different firearms. I'm not going to cover off on all of them in this video, just because there's so many of them to discuss, and there's differences, significant differences between many of them. But just to make a long story short, the United States military, one of the first things we did when we decided we need something to fill that gap at those extended ranges, they dug out the M14 from mothballs. They even put them in modern EBR type stocks from Sage, and tried to improve the accuracy of the rifles, which aren't known for their extreme precision. But then again, the DMR is not meant to be extremely precise like a dedicated sniper rifle. It's meant to be somewhere in between. So it can have the accuracy of an infantry rifle, but it has the optics to extend that range to where you can engage a point target at up to, again, 600 meters. And so they played around with the M14s. They weren't all that well received, but the M14 was a stopgap measure until the United States Army could find something else. One of those something else's was the Mk20, and this is a weapon system that was developed by the Naval Warfare Center, Cranes, right here in Indiana. And what they came up with was an upper receiver that could be pinned to any M16 lower, and it would turn that rifle into a designated marksman's rifle. And the Mk20 saw some use, and this is a very popular clone build. And just to quickly go over what the Mk20 is, standard M16 lower, oftentimes you'd see it with a fixed stock, but you would also see them with collapsible stocks. Have the PRI rail and handguard out here. We have a different gas block here with the flipped up front sight. We have a taper mount that sets back from the end of the muzzle, so you have the can that actually comes back over the barrel, and then on it we have an AM5 suppressor that is designed specifically for the Mk20 rifle. The downfall of this rifle, even using 77 grain precision loads, the rifle was just not all that adequate at extended ranges, especially in flat places where the winds can kick up. This little bullet gets pushed around all over the place, making taking that precise shot at extended ranges a little bit more difficult. So the world's militaries, us in particular, and some other countries as well, dabbled in 5.56 DMRs, but quickly started to look for other solutions. And in the case of the United States, we looked at the SR-25, the M110 system, the SCAR-20, a bunch of, and the CSAS rifle, which is based on the HK417. And so we looked at a bunch of different rifles to fill that role and to replace something like this. So what I want to talk about next is a rifle that the British military, or the UK, the Brits started to look at a DMR rifle, and they considered a number of different rifles, from the Scar H to the Sabre Defense XR10, and then also the HK417, much like our CSAS rifle, and then an LMT rifle that we know as the Sharpshooter. And that's the rifle I want to talk about next. This rifle is something that I've had a number of requests to talk about, so we're going to do it in this video, and then we're going to kind of compare it to the Mark 20, or the Scar 20S as we know it in the civilian world. It's the Mark 20 in the military world. We'll compare that rifle to that rifle, talk about why it's not really an apples to apples comparison. So with that being said, let's take a look at that L129A1 rifle. This is the L129A1, manufactured by LMT and in use by UK forces. This rifle was their answer to looking for a DMR, designated marksman's rifle. The rifle, as you see it configured here, is the configuration in which they first adopted it. It's missing its RMR, but this is the way it looked when it was first adopted, and 1 in 8 troops would be issued this rifle at the section level. So it was intended to be a true designated marksman's rifle. That means when this is not only just a precision weapon, but it's also intended to be the primary fighting rifle of the soldier carrying it. So it's a dual function weapon. It's used for fighting as you normally would, and then when you put this particular optic on it, or if you just leave it on there, it's also capable of reaching out to fill that gap between 300 meters and 600 meters. And so that's what makes this rifle special for their military. This is something that took considerable thought. They compared this against several other weapons on the market at the time. The HK417, it went up against the Scar Heavy, and then also the Sabre Defense XR10. In essence, it's a AR-10 rifle that's direct gas impingement at its core. So if you're familiar with LMT, it has all the standard LMT features. The gun does have a 16-inch barrel on it, and it has an 11.25-inch twist rate in the barrel, so it's going to do well with 147 grain ball all the way up to 175 grain SMKs. The barrel is something that the user can swap out themselves, and you can also do a caliber change, so it's a very easy barrel system to work with. You can take it out and put it in yourself. It does have the LMT monolithic upper on it. It does not have the Mars type lower, so we don't have bolt control, bolt releases over here. We have a magazine release and ambi fire control. Over on the other side of the weapon, we have a ping pong paddle type bolt hold, bolt release, and then we have an ambi mag release on the left-hand side. Back here, we have a standard M4 sized buffer tube, and so it kind of steps down. It's big, bulky AR-10 up here. It steps down, so you can use standard M4 accessories on the weapon. Now I'm going to fire a few rounds without the suppressor attached. This is the proper suppressor that goes with the weapon, but you're going to hear probably the tuning fork, which is a signature sound of Surefire muzzle devices like this one. So let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad guy, and then we'll throw the suppressor on it and do some more shooting with it and show you what types of groups this rifle is capable of producing. I hope you guys can hear that ringing, because I certainly can, and most people find that to be really annoying. The weapon is clear, bolts locked to the rear. I've taken the magazine out, and it is clear. It's on safe. I'm now going to go ahead and put the Surefire suppressor on. Just kind of put it on, rotate it till it drops down, like that, then turn its locking collar. And it'll ratchet into place. And one thing that I found that's really interesting about the rifle with its Surefire suppressor is that it does not change the point of impact. So you can shoot it with and without the suppressor, and you don't have to worry about your point of impact wildly shifting. Put a few rounds in here. Now that I've attached the Surefire can, I'll show you what this gun looks like. And it does not overgas the operator of the weapon. So that's another nice thing. With the Surefire can, we're not getting a bunch of gas back in the face. I'm not sure how LMT thwarted that issue with a traditional baffled can. But again, the rifle is very, very pleasant to shoot with a can on it. So there you go, with and without the suppressor. You definitely see a lot of gas and stuff back here, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast when you're running a baffled suppressor. In terms of accuracy, again, we see the same accuracy with and without the suppressor installed. This is the SCAR 20S in the civilian world, or also known as the Mark 20 in military circles. This rifle has been adopted, mostly by special operations, for the use as a sniper support rifle, which is what we were talking about earlier. This rifle is not a one-to-one comparison to the L129A1. Now, it's interesting to note that the UK also took a look at this rifle with the 6-power optic and decided, well, they wanted a sniper support rifle as well. They didn't use it in this configuration. They put a Schmidt & Bender variable power precision optic on it, and then they would run the Surefire can, and the UK will also use this rifle as a sniper support weapon, but they'll also use it as a DMR in the configuration that you see it here. The biggest difference is, regardless of what optic you put on this rifle, this is still an AR-10 fighting rifle. This rifle can be used as a standard infantry rifle, then be used as a DMR later by the same soldier, so they can use it in both roles. This rifle is perfectly capable of being used in CQB, and it's perfectly capable of taking that shot at 600 meters. And that's where it differs from the Mark 20. The Mark 20, again, sniper support weapon because of its adjustable stock, its extended length receiver and barrel. This rifle is not a standard infantry rifle. It would not do well in that role. This rifle is something you would set up in a hide and take, deliberate shots at precise targets. That's just because of the way it's set up. Now, the gun's perfectly light enough. It's just that with this stock and things like that, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. What would make more sense and be a better comparison would be to compare this to the SCAR 17S, because in that capacity, the two rifles would be pretty evenly matched. But the request was to compare the L129A1 to the Mark 20. Now, we've talked about the accuracy and showing you the accuracy of the L129A1. We've already done a video where I compared this rifle to the SCAR 17S and talked about the accuracy of this rifle. In that video, you'll note that we got, without a suppressor installed in the factory muzzle device on the barrel, we typically saw about a 1 inch to 1.5 inch accuracy potential out of the Mark 20, or the SCAR 20S. So you'll see here with 168 grain bullets, a 1.4 inch group. That was off a rest, out of a clamp rest. 168 grain Federal Gold Medal match, a 1 inch group. 168 grain Federal Gold Medal match, just shot off a bag. This one's by Jason, a 1.1 inch group. So you get an idea. The gun was a 1 to 1.5 minute gun. Then I put the OSS suppressor on it, which you see here. So I took the factory muzzle device on there, which was wrenched on there, way over torqued. Had to use heat and everything else to get that thing off the end of the barrel. And then I put an OSS muzzle device on it, the OSS can, and the gun settled down nicely. This is with 175 grain rounds, so the gun still doesn't like the 175s, the 1 in 12 twist. That could potentially be improved with the 1 in 10 of the new guns. But if you take a look at the groups up here, this was a zeroing target. But if you take a look at the groups here, they're all in the 1/2 inch range. So the gun settled down with a silencer on it to be about a 1/2 minute gun to, at worst, a minute, where before it was at best a minute and at worst 1.5 minutes. So I've read online that some folks saw an accuracy improvement on their 20Ss simply by taking the factory muzzle device off of the gun. They said that because it was so heavily torqued on that was affecting the accuracy of the gun. I didn't test that. I read about that later. But what I do know is when I put the OSS on the gun, it settled down and shoots very well now. It's extremely precise with federal gold medal match ammunition. So again, not a direct comparison, but I think this will give you guys an understanding of how these two guns stack up to each other. In the accuracy department, they're fairly evenly matched. It's just that the L129A1 is more of an infantry rifle and a true DMR than the Mark 20. LMT fairly recently moved to Iowa from Illinois to get out of an anti-gun state into a more pro-gun state. And so now that they're based in Iowa, there's a gentleman that works there named Randy, who we've known for many years. He's worked elsewhere in the industry, and Randy contacted me when he started working for LMT and said, hey, do you mind if we come out and bring a few rifles for you to play with to check out and give us your opinion on? And one of the rifles they brought out is the new Estonian contract rifle, which is a gas piston rifle in .308 that the Estonian military adopted. Then they also brought out a rifle just like this one, except it was in 6.5 Creedmoor and had a 14-inch barrel. Now that's something that I find to be of particular interest. We think that shorter barrels and calibers like .308 and 6.5 Creedmoor are probably going to gain more momentum as we go forward. But it's also interesting to note that the 6.5 Creedmoor is starting to make a splash in military circles. If you take a look at the CSAS program, which is the H&K 417, it was originally adopted as a 7.62x51 NATO rifle, but they are now ordering them in 6.5 Creedmoor. So I believe that is the future. 6.5 Creedmoor is starting to creep into the military circles because it has everything I've always said about 6.5 versus .308. It has better ballistics, it's about the same weight. The rifles that chamber it pretty much use the same magazines. It's easy to convert from one to the other. This rifle is just a simple barrel swap and everything else works with it. So it's a very simple thing to do to convert to 6.5 Creedmoor. And then you get that extended range and better ballistics over .308 or 7.62x51 NATO. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at the LMT, which is the L129A1, which is the civilian version known as the Sharpshooter here on the US market, manufactured by LMT. It's a very interesting rifle. If I had to pick this over a SCAR, which would I pick? Would I choose this or the SCAR 17 or the SCAR 20? Well, I definitely wouldn't take the SCAR 20 over this. When talking about the 17S and this rifle, now you're getting into that area where I'm not quite sure, but I think my preference would by a hair go to the L129A1. All right, guys. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or questions, please post those down below. It helps us out with the algorithms, and we enjoy reading those comments. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description down below. You'll get direct access to me. I answer all private communications. You get early access to videos like this one, and we have a great community over there of folks that you can interact with. Again, link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, there's a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button. Check us out. Look at some of the perks and consider supporting us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon. And I will say, if you've never fired an LMT rifle, you're missing out. These are some of the best built rifles out there. Absolutely works of art.